For reservations, call Mandarin House or Mandarin East. You can call them at WA, that's Watkins 90551. Watkins 90551. They'll take reservations for both. Okay? Speaking of monkeys, this is WOR, friends. That we're in New York. Who was it who used to say monkeys is the craziest peoples? Huh? That little film thing bored me even when I was a kid. Monkeys is the craziest peoples. A certain thing, you pick and choose. And I'm this kid, and I never, that point, I think you get definitely influenced by things that Freud never talked about. Freud always was hung up on mother and sex and all that stuff. But I think man gets, he's influenced by other things. And I think those things that you're really influenced by, you are really influenced by, and you can't fake it. I mean, anybody who at the age of 4 is caught in a major hurricane will never, ever again look at the sky with the same way that a guy whose idea of bad weather is when it drops down to 32 and the air conditioning starts squirting water on him. You agree with me, Corny? You have been insane. I know that. 2 major hurricanes, and you never forget it, do you, Corny? Oh, no, you don't. No matter how old you get. And anytime you hear Lyle Van complaining about the weather because it's raining, you kind of laugh inside because you know that there's other kinds of weather. I mean, the real thing. And this is what I mean by the environment that you can't, I don't know of many guys lying on a couch in a psychiatrist's office. And the analyst says, well, no, we're getting close to the heart of it. And then all of a sudden he goes, oh, yeah, I remember now. Oh, my God. Oh, yes. Oh, I'll never forget it. It must have been about 6 o'clock in the evening. I was about 3. And somewhere off in the distance, you could hear the sound of something coming closer. It sounded like 20 million freight trains going mad. Coming closer and closer. And then, boom! Our house was in the next county. Oh, I'll never forget it. Right, Carney? That's a little stronger, I think, a little stronger traumatic experience than if Esther Jane says no. Agreed? And yet to believe Philip Roth or J.D. Salinger, the worst thing that can happen to you is to have Esther Jane say no. Oh, no. I've seen some things. And I'm a kid, see. When I read this thing about the rabbits, I'm reminded of it. I'm a kid, and I'm sitting in a movie house. And it was this movie about Africa. Well, Africa was very mysterious, and these people were always around there chasing these animals. And, have you noticed that almost all the TV series today about Africa, guys like Cowboy in Africa, I mean, gee whiz. I mean, the desire to write a Western far transcends the desire of man to be reasonable. And so, no matter where man goes, there's going to be a Western. There will eventually, as the New Yorker pointed out, there will be a cowboy in space. And they'll be raising cattle on Venus, and there'll be rustlers coming out of Mars, and so on. But nevertheless, the idea of cowboy in Africa, which is a laughable joke right there. Cowboy underwater, and he's herding all these dolphins around. And, of course, the herd dog will be Flipper. Have you noticed, I saw Flipper the other night. I was interested. They ought to have Flipper in the UN. I'll tell you, that animal has got more insight. He knows human nature far better than the people on it. And he knows how to get to the heart of things. But nevertheless, this is the great desire to escape, so we have Flipper figuring out the problems. And Lassie, listen, Lassie has never been wrong. Ever. Just once, I'd like to see Flipper send him off on a wild goose chase. Flipper jumps out of the water and goes, ee! They all get their diving gear on. They say, oh, that's where the terrible thing must be. And they dive underwater, and all they find is a rock. And Flipper's faking it. But you won't find that. Animals, according to the poor, silly saps that write these things, are infallible. And they never make a mistake. And they're always invariably honest. And yet many animals are very sneaky. To anyone who's ever tried to train a horse, you know that one of the most dishonest things in the world is an animal. Absolutely. and next to a dachshund. And the dishonesty of these, I don't even want to talk about it, it's sickening. But nevertheless, I'm a kid, and I'm sitting in there watching this African movie, and it's very mysterious. And you can hear always in the background, you can hear the tom-toms of the Ooga Booga tribe, which is in all those movies. You know those sounds of the tom-toms and this. You see these guys running around with leopard skins, and they're all going, go, sahib, ooga. And I'm sitting there about 85 rows back, and I'm really sweating, because that's really scary stuff. And these guys are hunting rhinoceroses and stuff, and they're capturing them from the zoos. And there's this man and wife team. I don't even remember this. There's this lady there running around with the shorts on. You could hear the tom-toms. When all of a sudden, into the compound, that's an exciting phrase itself, compound. Into the compound, this exhausted native comes in with a spear, and he falls down, and he's covered with sweat, and he's carried the message. And the chief, the head of the party there, this guy with the big hat with the leopard skin band on it, and you know, the one that's going to make the scene with the wife, Gregory Peck type. He comes over with his 30-30 Mauser strapped to his back, and he says to the exhausted native who's lying there, and he goes, and the native goes, "Ooga, ooga, booga, ooga, booga." They always say ooga, booga. He goes, "Ooga, booga, mara, ooga, booga," and he's pointing out there. And the big man with the big hat with the leopard skin turns, and he says, "A scourge of locusts is approaching. A 17-year scourge of locusts, and he's eaten 47 million members of the Ooga Booga tribe already, and they're on their way. Ooga Booga." And then you hear boom, gong, 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 gong. Oh, holy smokes! Mysterious Africa strikes again. Well, I'm a kid, you know. I'm sweating like mad, and then there was a scene. Boy, you wouldn't believe it. It was photographed in thrilling black and white, and you wouldn't believe it. Actually, a lot of stuff is more scary in black and white. You know that people who make horror films have found out that horror films are like a 45 or maybe 100% less effective if they're filmed in color than if they're filmed in black and white, because color is too healthy. It looks too healthy. The sun is out. It looks too much like your world, and hence you can't really believe in things leaping out from the bushes, you know, with the mysterious poison on the tip arrows and stuff like that. But in black and white, there's something else. Can you imagine The Bride of Frankenstein in color? You can imagine it, but it wouldn't do it. It wouldn't do it. I remember Elsa Lanchester. Elsa Lanchester was the Bride of Frankenstein. And I'll tell you, if anybody ever scared me out of 15 years' growth, at the age of 9, it was Elsa Lanchester suddenly appearing on the scene with her hair standing up straight. She had her hair stuck straight up in the air like wires, and she came out and she had that wild, maniacal look in her eye, which she still has. But I didn't know it was really typecasting, so she shows up there in the Bride of Frankenstein. I was scared out of my shoes. Well, this day that I saw this African film, I remember the scene. It's funny, if you're going to ask me of scenes that you can remember out of movies, and if the Times, the Times is forever using the word unforgettable in connection with movies, and yet very few people can actually remember the unforgettable movie that they saw last week. And they it's even hard to remember that you even remember the title of it, but they're unforgettable. I saw an unforgettable film the other day appear on television. It was the unforgettable film of the year 1959. And watching it, I was a little surprised. Well, I'll tell you about the air. I was a little surprised that it was called Unforgettable then. But there are a few scenes which, if you're honest about it, you don't really forget. They are truly unforgettable. And one of the scenes that was unforgettable, that in fact, the only, I'd say out of three scenes possibly in all the movies I've ever seen in my life that I can genuinely say I have never forgotten. And this one occurred, I was about 7, maybe 6. And I could hear the sound of the native drums in the background coming out of the soundtrack. Dum, da, da, dum, da, da, dum, da, da, dum. And these two people who were the head of this outfit that were catching rhinoceroses for the zoos back home were just told that there was a scourge of locusts on the way. And this was filmed in Africa. And sure enough, all of a sudden, the entire screen is filled with 28 billion, I'd say 28 trillion, ravening, chittering, insane. I mean, they were insanely angry and hungry locusts as far as the eye could see. It covered the whole screen. They were all going, what a scene. I mean, and they were flying through the air like some gigantic snowstorm. Locusts. And there was a shot of a tree. And you could see these things just hit it like a great big wave. And they moved right on, and there was nothing left of the tree. Just, they moved on past. And there was an automobile sitting there, a truck. And they went, and there was nothing left. They ate all the tires right off of it. Well, you know, I mean, we're naturally scared of bugs. I mean, people are, you know, let's face it, of one kind or another. And I couldn't believe this thing. And they had it recorded, and this was actually shot and everything. They did not do this on the back lot. And the voice said, "You are now seeing one of the rare films of an actual scourge of 17-year locusts, which are attacking this native village and have laid waste over 200,000 square miles of Central Africa." Well, this went on for about 5 minutes in the picture. And finally, the locusts had passed, and peace came. And the land all around where these people were in Africa, where they were hunting the rhinos and the leopards, there were shots. They took the camera, it was as flat and as completely devastated as some kind of pool table that is lost on the junkyard of old dead pool tables. Nothing. Flat. And you could see dust where they had chewed up the roots of the trees and the roots of the grass. And the ground was carpeted with dead locusts. Locusts which had been attacked by their fellow locusts as the locusts moved on. And the only thing that was moving in the entire landscape, there must have been about 250 vultures just moving in great circles over the devastated land. And I sat there, I watched this thing, and I'm in the Orpheum Theater. I mean, the place where we used to see the cowboy pictures, and all of a sudden I'm seeing a plague of locusts. Well, this was a truly unforgettable moment on film. And I walk out, you know that crazy feeling when you walk out of a movie, and there's just ordinary stuff. You can see the bowling alley across the street, and the sign keeps going off and on that says "Eat," and you can smell the popcorn as you go out through the lobby, and traffic is banging along, and that unreality, that feeling that the world that you have entered, which is the world of the traffic and the world of the sign that says "Eat," is very unreal. And the world that you have left behind you in the Orpheum is the real one. I'm walking down the street with Bruner. Bruner is quiet, and I'm quiet. We have been seared to the soul by something that Freud never talked about. I don't think Freud ever discussed a guy having a traumatic experience watching a plague of locusts on screen. You know? And, no, it is... You know, he was around. Freud was around before they had movies. I wonder how many guys 50 years from now are going to be lying on the couch and their analyst is going to be prodding them for their traumatic memories, their great breakthroughs into the aha land, where he tells, yes, this is when it happened. And it turns out that all the traumatic experiences that he had were out of films. And the psychiatrist says, yes, and then what did Geraldine Page say to Paul Newman? Now, come on, get it out. Well, I can't say it again. Because the curious experience is very definitely taking over in our world, and very few people have any actual experiences anymore, and it's all done by hearsay and done through the good offices of Dory Sherry and various other types of that kind. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking about this. I go home, and it's supper time, see. I'm sitting at supper, and I'm unconscionably quiet. I remember my mother turning to me and saying, "What's the matter?" "Nothing." She said, "Well, didn't you have a good time today at the movies?" "Yeah." And a long pregnant pause. The old man says, "Well, what's eating you?"